The Kazakhs are a Turkic people whose roots lie in the vast stretches of Central Asia, and they share a cultural, linguistic, and historical background closely connected to other Turkic groups. Today, most Kazakhs live in Kazakhstan, a country that spans both Europe and Asia, where they form the ethnic majority and remain deeply tied to the steppe landscape that shaped their way of life. Communities of Kazakhs also live beyond Kazakhstan's borders, especially in regions that historically overlapped with Kazakh migration routes. These populations can be found in parts of Russia near the shared border, in Kyrgyzstan, northern Uzbekistan, and in the northwestern areas of China's Xinjiang region. Kazakh communities also settled in western Mongolia, particularly in Bayan-Olgi province, and smaller groups live as far away as northern Iran in Golestan province. The emergence of the Kazakhs as a distinct people can be traced to the 15th century, when several medieval tribes of Turkic and Mongolic origin gradually merged. This process began during a period of political change, particularly after the weakening of the Golden Horde, a powerful steppe empire that had long dominated much of Eurasia. As the Golden Horde fragmented, different clans and lineages sought new alliances and new identities. Among them were the followers of the sultans Janibek and Kere, who left the realm of Abul Khair Khan in hopes of creating their own Khanate. Their departure marked an important turning point, as their group eventually became recognized as the Kazakhs. With the establishment of the Kazakh Khanate between 1456 and 1465, their identity began to take clearer shape. The founding of this state provided a political and social framework through which the Kazakhs could define themselves. It also marked the beginning of their long association with the steppe territories that would become central to their history. In Kazakh tradition, the term Kazakh refers specifically to the ethnic group itself. In contrast, the word Kazakhstani is used in a broader sense, applying to all citizens of Kazakhstan regardless of their ethnic background. This distinction is important in modern usage and reflects the multi-ethnic character of the country today. The name Kazakh is believed to have come into use during the 15th century, the same period in which the Kazakh people were forming as a distinct group. Over time, many explanations have been proposed to account for the origin of this word, and none has been universally accepted. Still, each theory helps trace how the name might reflect aspects of early Kazakh life and identity. One suggestion links the word to the Turkic verb kaz, which carries meanings such as wanderer, free, independent, or even warrior. These ideas resonate strongly with the nomadic traditions of the early Kazakhs, who valued mobility and autonomy across the steppe. Another theory proposes that the name comes from the Proto-Turkic word kasak, referring to a type of wheeled cart used to transport yurts and belongings. Since this kind of cart was essential for pastoral nomadic life, the term might have evolved into an ethnonym identifying those who used it. A different explanation connects the name to the ancient Turkic word Kazakh. This term appears in an 8th century inscription known as the Uyuk Turan monument. According to scholars like Vasily Radlov and Veniamin Yudin, Kazakh is rooted in the verb kazan, meaning to obtain or to gain. In that sense, Kazakh would refer to someone who moves, wanders, and seeks opportunities, an image that again fits the lifestyle of nomadic steppe communities. Another historical name for the Kazakhs is Alash. This term appears frequently in Kazakh culture and memory. In many contexts, Alash refers to the three juzes, the major territorial and tribal divisions within Kazakh society. Because of its widespread use, Alash can function almost as a synonym for Kazakh, and it was also the name by which the Nogai people referred to the Kazakhs. Across the wide expanse of the Eurasian steppe, the land that is now Kazakhstan served for thousands of years as the home of many nomadic societies. These included the Sakas, who were related to the Scythians, followed later by groups such as the Xiongnu, the Western Turkic Khaganate, the Kipchak Confederation, the Mongol Empire, and the Golden Horde. Out of these shifting powers and migrating peoples, the Kazakh Khanate, established in 1465, eventually emerged. The origins of the Turkic peoples themselves have long been debated. Genetic studies of early medieval Turkic groups who moved into Central Asia reveal that they carried a strong connection to ancient populations of Northeast Asia. In fact, around 62% of their ancestry came from a gene pool associated with Neolithic hunter-gatherers of the Amur region. At the same time, there is evidence that they interacted with Iranian, Uralic, and Yeniseian peoples, showing that the steppe was a crossroads where many different populations exchanged both culture and genes. The Kazakh people took shape in the early 15th century as several mainly Turkic-speaking pastoral nomadic groups of northern Central Asia formed a united confederation. They lived across the northern Central Asian and southern Siberian territories that make up the Kazakh steppe. Their tribal alliances created a strong political structure that prospered from the trade routes of the Silk Road, which carried goods and wealth through the grasslands. Shokan Walikhanov, a leading Kazakh scholar of the 19th century, believed that the fragmentation of the Golden Horde played a crucial role in the formation of the Kazakh Khanate. As the larger state weakened, the Kazakh clans sought to defend their nomadic lands and secure their rights to the territories they traditionally moved through. In medieval Central Asia, the word Kazakh was commonly used for people who lived independently from a central authority. Even figures like Timur described periods of their youth as times of Kazakhlik, meaning independence or freedom from direct control. During the 15th century, the nomadic peoples of the Jochid Ulus, the realm of the Golden Horde, were widely referred to as Uzbeks, a name that reflected their conversion to Islam under Özbeg Khan in the 14th century. These Uzbeks, also called Tatars by Muscovites and Ottomans, descended from a blend of Turkic and Mongol tribes on the Chipchak steppe. Over time, divisions arose within this population, and by the early 16th century, the nomads of the eastern Chipchak steppe had split into two separate identities, the Kazakhs and the Shibanid Uzbeks. From a broader perspective, the Kazakhs belonged to the larger family of Chinggisid successor states, which also included the Shibanid Uzbeks, the Crimean Tatars, the Mangits or Nogais, and the Chagatais. These groups shared a Turkic language, political traditions rooted in Mongol governance, a Chinggisid royal lineage, and Sunni Islam. Even after the Mongol Empire fractured, they continued to shape the region from the Crimea to the Tian Shan Mountains and from southern Siberia to northern India. In the mid-16th century, Turco-Persian sources recorded the term Özbek Kazakh, most notably in the Tarikh-i Rashidi, written by Mirza Muhammad Haydar Duglat, a Chagatai prince from Kashmir. He placed the early Kazakh Union around 1465 to 1466 and located them in the eastern part of the Deshti Chipchak. According to this account, the Kazakhs emerged when nomads settled near the border of Mogulistan and became known as Uzbek Kazakh. The formation of the Kazakh Khanate is closely tied to the unrest that followed the defeat of Abul Khair Khan by the Oirats. As conflict escalated, the sultans Kare and Janibek, descendants of Urus Khan, led a large group of followers away from Abul Khair's authority. They settled in the region of Jedisu, along the edges of Mogulistan. The Chagatai ruler Esen Buka II welcomed them, hoping their presence would create a buffer zone against Oirat expansion. Haydar Duglat described how, after Abul Khair's death, disorder swept through the Uzbek Ulus. Many nomads, perhaps as many as 200,000, joined Kare and Janibek, forming the core of what became known as the Uzbek Kazakh community. Their authority grew, and the Kazakh sultans ruled large parts of Uzbek territory throughout the late 15th and early 16th centuries. By the early 16th century, after migrations led by Shaybani Khan into Transoxiana, the term Kazakh began to take on a more specifically ethnic meaning, and the prefix Uzbek gradually disappeared from their name. By the late 15th and 16th centuries, the Kazakhs had established a powerful nomadic state whose influence stretched westward to the Ural River and eastward to the Tian Shan Mountains. Contemporary accounts describe them as a formidable force, capable of putting as many as 200,000 horsemen into the field. Their military strength and the vastness of their territory made them one of the major powers of the Central Asian steppe. As the descendants of Kazım Khan took power, the authority of the Khanate began to weaken. Local leaders, the sultans, beys, and peers, gained influence within their respective tribal and clan communities. This gradual shift in power eventually caused the Kazakh Khanate to fragment into three regional groupings known as the hordes or guzes. The Great Horde occupied the southeastern regions north of the Tian Shan. The Middle Horde controlled the central steppe near the Aral Sea, and the Little Horde lived between the Aral Sea and the Ural River. While the Khans still held nominal authority over these territories, their power depended heavily on the loyalty and cooperation of these regional leaders. Haknazar, the last of Qasim Khan's sons to rule, sought to reverse this fragmentation. He successfully reunited the three hordes and extended his influence beyond the steppe. His rule was marked by ambitious military campaigns, including systematic raids into Transoxania. Under his leadership, Kazakh forces asserted control over not only the Kazakh hordes, but also the Bashkirs, Kyrgyzs, and Nogais, as well as key territories such as the Kazan, Siberian, and Astrakhan Khanates. Cities like Bukhara, Khiva, and Tashkent were also brought into his sphere of influence. Historical accounts describe Haknazar as a ruler who took advantage of instability among his neighbors. He imposed strict limitations on the populations he conquered and demanded heavy tributes, even restricting movement across certain rivers. His policies often brought hardship to these communities, but they strengthened his power and solidified his control over a wide region. His successors continued these military campaigns. Tawakkol Khan, for instance, briefly succeeded in capturing Samarkand. Despite such victories, unity within the Kazakh Khanate again weakened in the early 17th century. Central authority dissolved further. Many smaller rulers rose to prominence, and the three hordes started functioning increasingly as independent political entities. After the death of Tawakkol Khan in the early 18th century, variously dated to 1715 or 1718, the Kazakh Khanate effectively ceased to exist as a unified state, and each of the three hordes continued on its own path. During the 17th century, the Kazakhs were drawn into a long and difficult struggle against the Oirats. By the early 18th century, the Kazakh Khanate reached its highest level of power, but it also faced one of its gravest threats. The Oirat invasion of 1723, remembered as the Great Disaster, forced many Kazakh communities into desperate displacement. The Little Horde played a key role in the resistance that followed. Under Abul Khair Khan, the Kazakhs were able to regain momentum. They won decisive victories at the Bulanti River in 1726 and at Anyarakai in 1729, turning back the Oirat advance. Another central figure in these struggles was Ablai Khan, who took part in the wars against the Dzungars from the 1720s through the 1750s. His success and leadership earned him the title of Batir, or hero, among the Kazakh people. Later, he became the last Khan whose authority extended across the entire Kazakh steppe. Between 1771 and 1781, he ruled the Middle Horde and tried to maintain a delicate balance between two expanding empires, Russia and Qing China. His acceptance of Russian suzerainty in 1740 and his concurrent diplomacy with the Qing allowed the Kazakh Khanate to retain a degree of autonomy for a time. After Ablai's death, his successor, Vali Khan, shifted toward acknowledging Russian authority more directly. This change signaled a new era in which Russian influence over the Kazakh steppe grew steadily. In 1822, the institution of the Khanate was formally abolished among the Kazakh hordes. This abrupt end to traditional leadership fueled several uprisings, including the revolt led by Sultan Kazım from 1824 to 1827. The last major attempt to restore the Khanate came from Sultan Kenezari Kasimov, who declared himself Khan in 1837 and led an extended armed resistance against Russian rule. His struggle continued until his death in 1847. Once Kazakhstan was fully incorporated into the Russian Empire, the region experienced profound cultural changes. Kazakh intellectuals played a central role in shaping a modern, secular culture influenced by ideas brought through Russian education. Figures such as Shokan Walikhanov and Abay Kunanbayev adapted these influences to suit Kazakh society, producing a cultural renaissance unmatched elsewhere in Central Asia at the time. After the Russian Revolution, Kazakh leaders attempted to secure autonomy through the formation of the Alash Orda government in 1917. Although it held little practical power, it represented a strong expression of Kazakh aspirations for self-rule. When the Red Army defeated White Russian forces by 1920, Kazakhstan was absorbed into the Soviet Union. Despite their nomadic heritage, Kazakhs were among the most literate indigenous peoples of Central Asia, but Soviet policies drastically reshaped their society. Forced collectivization devastated the population. Between 1926 and 1939, Kazakhstan lost nearly one-fifth of its people. Around 1.5 million died, mainly from starvation and disease, while others perished due to violence. Thousands fled to China, though many did not survive the journey. Kazakhstan became a full Soviet republic in 1936. In the 1950s, the Virgin Lands program opened northern Kazakhstan to wheat cultivation by Slavic settlers. Over time, the project created severe ecological damage, especially to the Aral Sea. Kazakhstan's importance grew during the Soviet period due to the placement of nuclear testing sites in the Baikonur Space Launch Center on its territory. From 1959 to 1986, Dinmukamed Kunayev led the Communist Party of Kazakhstan. His leadership balanced the interests of both Kazakhs and Russians. However, his removal in 1986 sparked major protests, the first significant riots in the Soviet Union during the 1980s, revealing deep dissatisfaction among Kazakhs. Kazakhstan declared sovereignty on October 25, 1990, and became fully independent on December 16, 1991, following the collapse of the Soviet Union. One of the earliest known references to the Kazakhs in Western writing appears in the 16th century. The Habsburg diplomat Sigismund von Herberstein, who traveled widely and wrote detailed accounts of the regions surrounding Muscovy, mentioned the Kazakhs in his 1549 work, Notes on Muscovite Affairs. His writings offer one of the first windows through which European readers encountered the name and the people behind it, marking an early point of contact between the Kazakh world and Western scholarship. By the 17th century, the growing presence of the Russian Empire on the steppe created a need for clearer linguistic distinctions. In Russian usage, both the Kazakhs of the Central Asian steppes and the Cossacks of the Russian military frontier had names that sounded similar. To avoid confusion, Russian convention began spelling the Kazakh ethnonym with a final consonant written as kiks, while the word for Cossack kept the he ending. This distinction was formally adopted by the Soviet authorities in 1936. The pronunciation reflects this difference as well. Kazakh is rendered as hash, Kazakhs, while Cossack appears as Kazakh. The Kazakh people emerged through the merging of various Turkic and Mongolic tribes, many of them directly connected to the heritage of the Golden Horde. This deep historical blending shaped the structure of Kazakh society, which became organized into three major divisions known as juzes, or hordes. These groupings played an important role in Kazakh social and political identity for centuries. In modern Kazakhstan, tribal affiliations still exist as part of cultural memory, though they no longer hold significant influence in business or government. Many Kazakhs still ask one another which tribe they belong to when they first meet, but the question is seen as a matter of tradition rather than social hierarchy. Regardless of tribal background, Kazakhs consider themselves one nation. The three Js form the broad framework of traditional Kazakh identity: the senior or great horde, Uli Jews; the middle horde, Orta Jews; the junior or lesser horde, Kishi Jews. Each horde contains numerous tribes and clans, and each historically occupied specific regions across the steppe. The origins of the Juzes have long been debated. Their age cannot be clearly traced in surviving written sources, and the earliest mentions appear only in 17th century texts. One influential interpretation comes from the Turkologist Velyaminov Zernov, who linked the formation of the hordes to the events following Tebekel Khan's capture of the cities of Tashkent, Yasi, and Seyram in 1598. According to this view, the Kazakhs held these cities for part of the 17th century, and their expansion from Zitisu into the wider stretches of the Dashti Chipchak encouraged them to spread into larger territories. As Kazakh groups expanded and repositioned themselves across the steppe, especially around the Sir-Daria region, where key trade routes and cities like Yasi and Seyram were located, their populations began to differentiate more clearly. Over time, these distinctions solidified into the three major hordes. The junior horde is believed to have derived from the Nogays of the Nogai horde. The Kazakh language belongs to the Turkic family, which stretches across a wide region from Eastern Europe through Central Asia and into parts of Siberia and Xinjiang. Within this large family, Kazakh is part of the Kipchak, or northwestern branch. This group includes languages such as Kyrgyz, Tatar, Bashkir, and Karakalpak, and it developed largely during the era of the Golden Horde, when Turkic-speaking groups spread across the steppe. The modern form of Kazakh is believed to have taken shape around 1465, during the formation of the Kazakh Khanate. Its linguistic ancestry draws from both Chagatai Turkic, spoken widely among the Timurids, and Kipchak Turkic, the dominant language of the Golden Horde. Over time, these influences blended into a distinct language that carried the cultural and historical experiences of the Kazakh people. As Kazakhs interacted with surrounding cultures, their language absorbed a significant number of loanwords. Persian entered the language through trade and diplomacy, and it served as a lingua franca within the Kazakh Khanate, allowing Persian vocabulary to mix naturally into Kazakh speech and writing. Arabic, on the other hand, entered mainly through religion. It was the language of the mosque and the mausoleum, used in Islamic scholarship and prayer in much the same way that Latin functioned in Western Europe. For many centuries, Kazakh was written using the Arabic script. This system remained in place until the mid-19th century, when educated Kazakh poets trained in Muslim madrasas began resisting Russian influence. In response, the Russian administration introduced secular schools and promoted a Cyrillic-based writing system. Despite these efforts, the shift was not widely accepted, and by 1917, the Arabic script returned to use, even in schools and local administration. A major change occurred in 1927, when a Kazakh nationalist movement emerged, but was quickly suppressed by the Soviet Union. As a result, the Arabic script was banned and the Latin alphabet was imposed. This too was short-lived. In 1940, as part of a broader effort to integrate non-Russian peoples into Soviet society, the Latin alphabet was replaced with a Cyrillic script. This version became the standard writing system for Kazakh throughout the Soviet era. In recent years, Kazakhstan has sought to return to the Latin alphabet as part of a broader modernization effort. In January 2021, the government reaffirmed its commitment to switching officially to a Latin-based script. Today, Kazakh is the official state language of Kazakhstan. Outside the country, it is also spoken by Kazakh communities in the Ili region of Xinjiang, where the Arabic script remains in use, and in Western Mongolia, where the Cyrillic script is still standard. Kazakh communities in Europe use the Latin alphabet, reflecting their different migration histories and local influences. Genetic research has provided a clearer picture of how the Kazakh people formed through the blending of different historical populations. Studies consistently show that Kazakhs descend from the admixture of several tribes, reflecting the diverse movements and alliances that shaped the steppe over many centuries. Their genetic profile is dominated by East Eurasian ancestry, which aligns with the populations of Northeast Asia. This includes a strong component linked to ancient hunter-gatherers from the Amur region, sometimes referred to through the Devil's Gate cave sample. Alongside this, Kazakhs also carry a smaller genetic influence from ancient Yellow River farming communities, peaking among northern Han Chinese. At the same time, Kazakhs show a measurable degree of West Eurasian ancestry. One study estimated this Western-related component at around 35 to 37%, while another placed it slightly below 30%. These findings match historical accounts describing contact and mixture between steppe nomads and various Iranian, Indo-European, and Western Eurasian groups who lived or traded across northern Central Asia. Genetically, Kazakhs most closely resemble neighboring Central Asian peoples such as the Karakalpaks, Kyrgyz, the Tubalar of Siberia, and the Oghuz people of Xinjiang. Their genome also shows close affinity to Mongolians and Tuvans, which reflects the long-standing connections between the Kazakh steppe and the broader Mongol world. More detailed studies of autosomal markers and Y chromosome patterns suggest that the Kazakh ethnicity emerged between the 13th and 15th centuries, a period marked by the rise and fragmentation of the Golden Horde. Anthropologists such as Orazak Ismagulov have noted that the physical characteristics of Kazakhs formed during the 13th century and closely resemble those of the nomadic peoples of the Golden Horde. Cluster analyses conducted by L.T. Yablonsky reinforce this view, showing that Kazakhs share the strongest genetic similarity with the nomads of the lower Volga region during that era, while groups such as modern Tatars, Uzbeks, and Chuvash show closer ties to urban populations from the same period. Other genetic studies highlight additional connections. Research by Katsuyama and colleagues, based on allele frequency and genetic polymorphisms, places Kazakhs in close genetic proximity to Japanese, Hui, Han Chinese, and Uyghur populations, contrasting them with groups of primarily West Eurasian origin. A more recent study from 2020 by Seydouli and colleagues analyzed the Kazakh genome in even greater detail. Their model traced approximately 63% of Kazakh ancestry to a Northeast Asian-related source, again connected to the Devil's Gate sample. Around 30.8% came from European-related populations, likely representing ancient Scythian influences. Another 6% derived from a broad South Asian source. Overall, the findings reinforce the idea that Kazakhs formed from highly mixed historical populations of Central Asia and remain closest genetically to groups such as the Kalmyks, Karakalpaks, Kyrgyz, Altaians, Mongolians, and Tuvans. Today, ethnic Kazakhs make up just over 71% of Kazakhstan's population, numbering more than 14 million people. Beyond Kazakhstan's borders, large Kazakh communities live in regions where historical migrations or political upheavals once pushed families and tribes to relocate. In the Russian Federation, the 2010 census recorded around 647,000 Kazakhs, most of whom live along the long border shared with Kazakhstan. The largest communities are found in Astrakhan, Orenburg, Omsk, and Saratov oblasts. While some schools in these regions offer Kazakh as a separate subject, full secondary education in the Kazakh language is not available. Kazakhs are also among the 56 officially recognized ethnic groups in the People's Republic of China. According to the 2020 census, more than 1.56 million Kazakhs live there, ranking 18th among China's ethnic groups. Many of these families trace their presence in China to the early 1930s, when famine in Kazakhstan forced thousands to flee across the border in search of safety. In the 19th century, the advance of the Russian Empire pushed many Kazakhs toward neighboring territories. Around the 1860s, some Middle Horde clans moved into Mongolia and settled in Bayan-Ogi, a region in the west of the country. For much of the 20th century, these Kazakh communities remained culturally distinct and tightly connected to their traditions. Today, ethnic Kazakhs form the overwhelming majority of the population in Bayan-Ogi province and make up a significant presence in Kogh province as well. Their communities are also found in cities and towns across Mongolia, including Ulaanbaatar, especially in the Nalaik district, as well as in Tov, Seleng, Darkhan, Erdenet, Bulgan, and other regions. Uzbekistan is home to more than 821,000 ethnic Kazakhs as of early 2021, with most concentrated in Karakalpakstan and the northern part of the country. Their long presence there reflects both historical borders and movements shaped by the shifting power dynamics of Central Asia. In Iran, Kazakh communities formed under unusual circumstances. During the Qajar period, Kazakh slaves were purchased by Kievan and Turkmen traders, who falsely presented them as Kalmyks. Meanwhile, Kazakhs of the Aday tribe had lived along the borderlands between the Russian Empire and Iran since the 18th century. By the 1897 census, they made up about 20% of the population in the Trans-Caspian region. After the Kazakh uprising of 1870 against Russian rule, many fled to Iran as refugees. Today, most Iranian Kazakhs live in Golestan province, especially around Gorgan. While their numbers have decreased since the fall of the Soviet Union due to repatriation to Kazakhstan, small communities remain. During the 1930s, when Bolshevik repression intensified, some Kazakhs fled to Afghanistan. Historian Gulnar Mendikulova estimates that between 20 and 24,000 Kazakhs lived there by 1978. Over time, many assimilated into local communities and no longer speak the Kazakh language. Islam became deeply rooted among the Kazakhs through several waves of influence that began during the late 14th century. The Golden Horde played a major role in spreading the religion across its territories, and by the time of the Kazakh Khanate, Islam had become a significant force in shaping cultural and spiritual life. Rulers such as Ablai Khan and Qasim Khan fostered its growth, and during the 15th and 16th centuries, Sufi orders were particularly important in bringing Islamic teachings to Kazakh communities across the steppe. In the 18th century, Russian influence expanded rapidly into Central Asia. Early Russian policy appeared tolerant toward Islam, and Muslim clerics were even invited to preach among the Kazakhs, whom Russian officials often characterized as lacking proper moral and ethical guidance. Over time, however, Russian policy shifted toward weakening Islamic structures. Authorities attempted to promote pre-Islamic elements of steppe identity as a means of diluting religious ties. They emphasized ancient heroes, reinterpreted collective memory, and introduced a sense of cultural inferiority by sending Kazakh youths to elite Russian military academies. In response, some Kazakh religious leaders embraced ideas of pan-Turkism, though many who did so faced persecution. During the Soviet era, Islam persisted only where Kazakhs were numerous enough to maintain their practices in daily life, particularly in rural areas. Soviet authorities targeted aspects of Kazakh culture, including gender norms and traditional practices, as part of efforts to shape society according to communist ideology. Many religious institutions were restricted or suppressed, though informal observance survived among families and local communities. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Islamic life among the Kazakhs began to revive. Today, most Kazakhs identify with Islam, and adherence tends to be strongest in rural areas. While the Kazakh population is overwhelmingly Sunni Muslim, there are small Christian minorities as well. According to the 2009 census, just over 39,000 ethnic Kazakhs identified as Christians. In Iran, where some Kazakh communities settled among Persian and Turkmen Shia populations, a number of Kazakhs adopted Shia Islam. Aside from their religious affiliation, however, Shia Kazakhs remained culturally similar to their Sunni counterparts.